Chapter 1 Qianrenhan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wuhun City, a place of simple luxury steeped in history, lay blanketed in thick, white snow, in the heart of the city. Inside the Pope's opulent palace, blood-curdling screams echoed. On a large, plush bed, a beautiful, heavily pregnant woman writhed in agony, her delicate face drenched in sweat. Anyone with a lick of sense knew what was happening. A baby was about to arrive, and a pair of parents would be born along with it. Normally, a soon-to-be mother would show at least a glimmer of happiness, no matter the pain. But not this woman. Her bloodshot eyes blazed with hatred and murderous intent, so intense it felt like the end of the world. She clawed at her abdomen, as if trying to kill the unborn child, but the midwife held her down. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, 2 babies cried, their voices filling the room. The sole master midwife, her task complete, opened the door and addressed the anxious, handsome young blonde man and the middle-aged blonde man who were pacing outside. "Congratulations, Your Majesty the Pope. It's twins. A boy and a girl, safe and sound." Hearing this, Qianxunji and Douluo could no longer contain their joy. "Excellent. You will be rewarded handsomely." "Thank you, Your Majesty the Pope." The midwife knelt on one knee, her face beaming. Qianxunji rushed inside and saw Bibi Dong, pale and drenched in sweat, tears streaming down her face, her hair a mess. He felt a pang of concern. "Donger, you've been through so much." Hearing Qianxunji's voice, Bibi Dong's empty gaze refocused, now filled with murderous rage. "You monster! You beast! I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to kill those 2 little bastards." Summoning strength from somewhere, Bibi Dong pushed herself up and lunged towards the 2 babies in the bassinet beside the bed, reaching for their necks. Qianxunji, shocked, paled. He quickly stepped in front of the babies, grabbed Bibi Dong's hand, and said in anguish, "Donger, what are you doing? They're your children. Even animals don't kill their young. I'm the one at fault, not them. How could you attack them?" Hearing this, Bibi Dong hesitated for a moment, then screamed, "Those 2 brats aren't my children. I'll kill you. I'll kill you all." Seeing Bibi Dong's crazed state, Qianxunji's eyes flashed with helplessness. He swiftly chopped the back of her neck, knocking her unconscious. "Take the children to the hall of worship," Qianxunji instructed the trembling maid beside him. He couldn't risk leaving the babies near Bibi Dong, not in her current state. If she did something crazy, the consequences would be devastating. As the 2 children were carried away, Qianxunji, his face etched with conflicting emotions, walked out of the room and met Douluo's cold gaze. He lowered his head. "Father." Silence hung heavy in the air. Douluo didn't speak, and Qianxunji didn't look up. Finally, Douluo sighed. "I don't want to talk about you and Bibi Dong anymore. My Qian family is in her debt, after all." Qianxunji said earnestly, "Father, don't worry. I will do everything I can to make it up to Donger. With these 2 children, I believe we can become a family." "Let's hope so." Douluo nodded and hurried towards the hall of worship, unable to contain his excitement at becoming a grandfather for the first time. Qianxunji quickly followed. Meanwhile, in the hall of worship, 6 elders stood around a baby's cradle. They wore robes of different colors and had removed their shoulder armor. The 6 elders formed a circle, gazing at the 2 newborns in the cradle, their eyes still closed. They looked upon them with loving expressions and spoke quietly so as not to disturb their rest. "Brothers, make way." Douluo stood before the 6 great enshrined ones. For the first time in his life, he abandoned his eldest brother's demeanor and impatiently moved closer to the cradle, peering down at the 2 tiny babies. "Greetings, uncles." Qianxunji greeted the 6 great enshrined ones and then stepped closer. Golden Crocodile Douluo smiled and asked, "Brother, Your Majesty the Pope, what names have you chosen for the young masters?" Hearing this, Douluo and Qianxunji were both taken aback. The names should have been chosen as soon as the children were born, but Bibi Dong's situation had prevented them from doing so. meeting Qiandaolu's somewhat displeased gaze, Qianxunji rallied his thoughts, looked out at Wuhun city blanketed in wind and snow, and said, "Father, they belong to the Ren generation, and they were born in a city where snowflakes fall. If the girl was born at night, let's call her Qianrenxue. And the boy, how about Qianrenhan?" Qianrenhan, Qianrenxue, fine names. Excellent names. The enshrined ones nodded in agreement, and Qiandaolu, also pleased with the names, approved Qianxunji's suggestion. Chapter 2 Annoying Sister. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At that moment, the baby boy in the stroller, his eyes still closed, shifted slightly beneath his lids, revealing a sense of frustration. He heard snippets of conversation around him, catching the key names, Qianxunji, Bibi Dong, and Qianrenxue. He knew then that he'd been reincarnated into the Douluo continent, a member of the Qian family, part of the villainous spirit hall. He was Qianrenxue's brother, and his new name was Qianrenhan. His opinion of the Qian family was dismal, to put it mildly. Qiandaolu. At best, you could call him a gentleman, the supposed conscience of Douluo continent. But the problem was, he was a gutless, wishy-washy coward. As long as you didn't cross his line, he'd retreat into his shell every time. Qianxunji. Borderline imbecilic. He couldn't manage Bibi Dong, and he lost to Tang Hao with 2 level 95 titled Douluos backing him up. The Flying Dragon Rider lost in a way that made even less sense. The Hexagon Warrior 6-winged angel was dumb enough to think he could win a head-to-head power contest with ultimate power and got hammered for it. He deserved it. Bibi Dong. Enough said. Then there was Qianrenxue. After a horribly cruel childhood, she hatched a 20-year plan to take over the Mtlnovel Palace, destroying her youth. Later, she becomes a god, only to get taken out with a single sword, and Qianrenxue, the one lying right next to him. He wanted to boot her off the planet. Fair duel. What a load of hogwash. The Mtlnovel Palace plan morphed into letting Dolphin Douluo block an attack. Then she lost and became a god. Even if she couldn't win later, there were still options. For example, she could have gone to Jialing Pass and used her god-level power to capture Tang Hao, Yin, and everyone Tang San cared about, holding them hostage. But no, she had to have a fair fight, and ended up getting her butt kicked. Basically, of the 5 people in this family, 3 were morons, and 1 was certifiably insane. 1 year later, early morning light streamed through the window of a luxurious bedroom. Besides the basic furniture, there were 2 small beds. One was empty, the other still occupied by a little boy with long, blonde hair, a fair complexion, and delicate features. His eyes were closed tight, as if he hadn't quite woken up yet. A few minutes later, a very cute little girl with blonde hair, extremely delicate features, and big round eyes, wearing an off-white, gold-trimmed sundress, walked over and nudged the sleeping boy. Brother, wake up. Grandpa's going to teach us today. We can't be late. Leave me alone. Go by yourself, Qianrenhan mumbled, turning over impatiently. Listen to Qiandaolu's lecture. What decent things could possibly come out of that old man's brain? No thanks. A moment later, Qianrenhan felt the bed shake slightly. Qianrenxue seemed to have climbed up, but he ignored her, too lazy to even tell her off. She didn't even have the guts to be rough with him. Then, he felt an unbearable tickle on his nose. He snapped his eyes open and saw Qianrenxue sitting beside him, teasing him with her hair. Qianrenxue quickly pulled back her hand and said with a smile, "Brother, you're awake. Let's go listen to Grandpa's lecture." Qianrenhan took a deep breath to calm his rising anger. He hated being woken up. If it were anyone else, he'd kick them across the room. But this was his sister, even if he didn't think much of her. He had to endure it. After getting dressed, Qianrenhan strode toward the main hall with an indifferent expression. Qianrenxue trailed after him, calling, "Brother, don't walk so fast. Wait for me. Brother, why do you always ignore me? What did I do wrong? Brother." Qianrenhan ignored her cries, maintaining his pace. His family was full of weirdos. Bibi Dong ran off to the killing city after giving birth to 2 kids. Qianxunji was busy with official duties all day long. Qiandaolu stayed glued to the angel statue like a zombie. And Qianrenxue kept pestering him, but he really disliked her and didn't want to talk to her, even when they slept in the same room. They had 2 beds only because he put his foot down, demanding to sleep separately. As for trying to change things, that was ridiculous. Everyone knew kids were supposed to listen to adults, so Qianrenxue's future was basically set. If he got emotionally involved, he'd be the one who suffered later. Brother. Qianrenxue finally caught up and grabbed his arm with both hands. Just go your own way, Qianrenhan said, frowning. He brushed her arm away and kept walking. After a moment, he noticed that the running footsteps had stopped and Qianrenxue's calls had faded away. He turned and saw her squatting on the ground, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed quietly. Qianrenhan sighed. Qianrenxue, still squatting and wiping away tears, looked up and saw a small hand extended toward her. She looked up at Qianrenhan's face, a hint of confusion in her eyes. Qianrenhan just waved his hand and said, "Let's go." "Don't you want to listen to Grandpa's lecture?" Hearing this, Qianrenxue jumped up and hugged Qianrenhan's arm, saying, "Thank you, brother. This is the first time you've ever reached out to me. I'm so happy." Seeing the genuine smile on Qianrenxue's face, Qianrenhan's eyes flickered with confusion. What was with this girl? He'd barely done anything, a gesture that barely qualified as concern, and she was overjoyed. For the rest of the way, Qianrenxue clung tightly to Qianrenhan's arm, as if afraid he'd ignore her again. "Brother, why do you always ignore me? Please tell me what I'm doing wrong. I promise I'll change. I'll do anything you say. Just don't ignore me, okay?" Qianrenxue said, shaking his arm with a pleading tone. After months of being nagged by a beautiful girl, coupled with such sincere words, even the most hard-hearted person would start to soften. Qianrenhan turned to look at Qianrenxue's delicate and charming face and said, "You haven't done anything wrong, Xiaoxue." Qianrenxue pressed, "Then why do you always ignore me?" Qianrenhan sighed, reaching out to ruffle her hair. "Let's just get through Grandpa's lesson first, okay?" Qianrenxue turned and saw that they had arrived at the main hall. Qiandaolu was standing under the angel statue, waiting for them. Chapter 3 Qianjia Mental Retardation Education. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Stepping into the hall of Douluo, they felt like they'd entered another dimension, thick with a heavy, solemn air. The hall wasn't decked out with fancy decorations. It was built entirely of plain rock, but if you looked closely, you could see a faint golden glow emanating from the stones. Touching them, you could feel a strange energy pulsing in your palm. Except for the entrance, the 3 high walls were lined with golden, square plaques, each about half a meter tall and a foot wide. Emblazoned on them were just 3 or 4 large characters. Douluo. In the center stood a massive, 10-meter-tall statue, gilded in gold. It had 3 pairs of wings spread wide, and held aloft a huge golden sword pointed straight to the heavens. What made it even more striking was the faint golden flame flickering around the sword's blade. Normally, only titled douluos were worthy of entering the hall. Those of lower rank could only look on from afar. However, Qianrenhan and Qianrenxue were different. The hall was dedicated to angels and gods, and they were direct descendants of those celestial beings. The hall was silent, empty save for Qiandaolu standing beneath the angel statue. "Grandpa." Qianrenxue released Qianrenhan's arm, running towards Qiandaolu with open arms and a beaming smile. "Xiaoxue." Qiandaolu knelt down, scooped her up, and affectionately rubbed the back of her head. "Grandpa." Compared to Qianrenxue's excitement, Qianrenhan was subdued, greeting him with the formality of an adult addressing an elderly relative. Qiandaolu wasn't surprised by this. Then, Qiandaolu noticed the tears in the corners of Qianrenxue's eyes, and he instantly flew into a rage. Who dared to make you cry? Was it you, you little brat?" Qiandaolu glared at Qianrenhan, who met his gaze calmly. He just wished Qiandaolu would leave him alone. Aside from not wanting to attend class, He'd felt uneasy ever since entering the hall, like a mouse sensing a cat. He just didn't want to be there. "Grandpa, it wasn't my brother's fault. I just got some sand in my eye. He even blew it out for me," Qianrenxue said, hugging Daolu's neck. Qianrenhan felt a mix of fondness and exasperation toward his silly sister. They just weren't on the same wavelength. After a moment, Daolu took Qianrenxue's hand. She turned to Qianrenhan, reaching out her small, delicate hand. Seeing her expectant face turn to disappointment, Qianrenhan reluctantly took her hand. Xiaohan, do you know why our Qian family's inherited seraphim is known as the #1 god-level spirit on the continent? Daolu said, his face filled with pride and a hint of fanaticism. Qianrenxue replied earnestly, "Grandpa Jean Crocodile said the seraphim spirit is a gift from God." Daolu nodded slightly. "Yes, our Qian family's ancestor was a divine being, achieving godhood at level 100. Our family has thrived because of his lingering blessing." Qianrenhan interjected, "Then why haven't I ever met our ancestor?" "Grandpa, you've never mentioned him except today." Daolu looked at him with surprise. Qianrenhan rarely approached him, practically never spoke, spending his days reading, eating, and sleeping. He replied, "I didn't want to tell you before. The world believes the ultimate soul master is a level 99 Douluo, but our ancestor broke through to level 100, becoming a god. Level 100 gods transcend the human world and leave Douluo continent for another realm." "Wow, Grandpa, what realm did the divine ancestor go to?" Qianrenxue's eyes widened with admiration. Daolu smiled. "It's where the gods naturally go. Hopefully, someday, both of you will join him there." Xiaohan, our Qian family, blessed by our divine ancestor, has flourished into the Wuhun Palace behemoth. Because of this, our family has always acted according to the principles of the angel god. Daolu extended his hand. An array of sacred light illuminated the hall. On the wall behind the angel statue, where no titled Douluo plaques hung, 16 large characters appeared in golden light. "With the sharp blade in hand, we can punish the 8 wastelands, protect the continent, and eradicate evil. This is the mission of every member of our angel family," Daolu said, retracting his hand as the words disappeared, leaving the wall as it was. "Okay." Qianrenxue nodded seriously, committing the 16 words to memory. Qianrenhan forgot them almost instantly. Shame comes from the heart. Even though we inherit the radiant seraphim spirit, it doesn't mean everything we do is righteous, nor does it mean we're the sole arbiters of justice, Daolu said, his sharp gaze subtly drifting toward the Pope's palace. His face turned serious. "To ensure we act strictly according to the angel god's principles, and to prevent his light from being obscured, you must remember what I'm about to tell you." Faced with Daolu's intense expression, Qianrenhan could only nod, despite his reluctance. Children of our Qian family must possess a spirit of humility. Humility means remaining respectful to our seniors who deserve our respect and have made significant contributions. Also, a spirit of integrity. We, the children of Qianjia, must act bravely and compete fairly with our opponents. We are forbidden from using underhanded tactics. Qianrenhan's mouth twitched slightly at this. Daolu continued, "The spirit of compassion, the spirit of heroism, the spirit of honesty, the spirit of sacrifice, the spirit of honor, the spirit of the soul. These are the values that all members of our angel clan must remember. While I can't claim to adhere to these 8 values perfectly, I can confidently say that I haven't dishonored the glory of our divine ancestor or the legacy of the angel clan. Since God can send me through time, can you just give me level 100 right now? I want to beat this old man to a pulp." Compared to Qianrenxue's attentive listening, Qianrenhan just felt increasingly murderous. Now he understood why Qianrenxue and Qianxunji were so foolish and stubborn. The fish rots from the head down. What kind of world is Douluo? A fantasy world. What are you believing in? The weak get eaten, the strong are respected. As long as you get stronger and survive, a soul master can use any means necessary. And what is Qianrenxue's chivalry? In Douluo, you'd get run over. You'd be lucky to graduate with a bachelor's degree, you'd be devoured by society and spat out, bones and all. Chapter 4 Learning Sword. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time flew by. Qianrenhan stormed out of the Douluo Palace, his face like thunder. Qianrenxue, trying to keep up, called out, "Bro, slow down. Wait for me," that he stopped abruptly. Qianrenxue, who'd been hustling to catch up, bumped right into him. Ouch, that she rubbed her head, looking up at his rigid back, tears welling in her eyes. She grabbed his arm. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Please don't be mad. Punish me, okay? Just please don't ignore me." Just when she thought he'd shrug her off again, he gently rubbed her head. "Brother," that she looked up, seeing his eyes no longer cold and distant, he said calmly, "You said you'd listen to me, right?" That she nodded eagerly. "I'll do whatever you say, as long as you don't ignore me." "Okay. Go spend time with Dad. He's always busy with work at this time. You can learn a lot about how the world works by watching him." She nodded. "Are you coming?" That he smiled and shook his head. "I have things to do." "You're not going to ignore me again, are you?" she asked, her eyes starting to water. He hesitated, then leaned down and pecked her cheek. "Be good. Be obedient." She lit up immediately. Her brother kissed her. That meant he liked her as his little sister. "I'm going to find Dad. See you at lunch." She turned and skipped happily towards the Pope's palace. As he watched her go, Qianrenhan's smile vanished, replaced by a dark expression. He sighed. "Xiaoxue, the Qian family has always been this way. It's not our fault, not after 3 generations. If you're naive, fine. At least you'll survive." The Qian family's code was chivalry, their foreign policy cautious, avoiding risky gambles. Qiandalu, for instance, crippled Tang Hao, who hadn't yet reached the title Douluo level. He didn't want a full-blown war with the Haotian sect, just to take him out of the picture. Yin didn't want to kill Tang Hao or Tang San, and neither did Qianrenxue. He could have overturned the chessboard, but instead opted to slowly poison Shuiyi. While this approach has drawbacks, it's good enough for you at your age. Even if you can't fix things, you'll be a high-ranking fighter in the spirit hall, handling affairs back home. If she couldn't handle it, so be it. What could she do if she was dumb? He was stuck with this family. Raised by them, fed by them, he owed them. He had to pay back the spirit hall, make sure it had the strength to become what he wanted. "Qian family, angel clan, I'm going back to the altar." He opened his eyes, now sharp and determined, and walked back into the Douluo hall. "Xiaohan, why are you back?" Qiandalu asked, a flicker of kindness in his eyes, though not as strong as he showed Qianrenxue. Qianrenhan cut to the chase. "I want to learn swordsmanship." Qiandaolu's expression froze. He smiled. "Why not go to Jia? Or I can find you a sword master." Qianrenhan said flatly, "I don't need a weak teacher. If you're going to find someone, find the best. Your sword, the one the spirit hall uses. Soul masters don't understand swords like you do. I don't need another person to get in my way." The greatest sword expert on the continent was undoubtedly Sword DouluoDalu. But even if he was stronger than Qiandaolu, how could he go to Sword Douluo to learn? Sword Douluo's father fought with Qiandaolu. He died of serious injuries. Seeing Qianrenhan's seriousness, Qiandaolu's loving demeanor vanished. He became serious. With a wave of his hand, they disappeared from the Douluo hall, the world blurred. When Qianrenhan could see again, he was on a windswept peak, high among the clouds. Qiandaolu stood before him, hands clasped behind his back, squinting at the horizon. "This is where our angel clan has honed its swordsmanship for generations. The remaining energy here will help you learn. First, before you learn to sword, I want to ask you something. Why do you want to learn swordsmanship?" I want power. Qianrenhan said coldly. Qiandaolu looked taken aback. His answer surprised him. Why are you in such a hurry to get stronger? You're not even due to awaken your spirit for another 5 years. In the Douluo continent, power is everything. I want the spirit hall, the entire continent, to be whatever I want. I want no one to be able to pressure the spirit hall. I want no one to stand above the Qian family. Hearing Qianrenhan's cold, domineering words, Qiandaolu's pupils contracted. He thought of his old rival, Tang Chen, and their final, decisive battle. Alright, I'll teach you how to wield a sword. But it will be incredibly difficult. Are you ready? Qiandaolu's eyes pierced into Qianrenhan. Qianrenhan met his gaze head-on, a smirk playing on his lips. Bring it on. I've been through Spirit Hall training. I can handle it. Chapter 5: The Three Realms of the Sword. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qiandaolu grinned, his immense soul power surging. 3 pairs of wings unfurled from his back, and each strand of his long, golden hair blazed with light. Behind him, a colossal 6-winged angel manifested, an embodiment of divine power. The moment his martial spirit took over, Qiandaolu seemed like a god walking on earth. The radiant, holy light he emitted calmed the soul and inspired reverence. Even the surrounding plants seemed invigorated, bursting with renewed life. Qiandaolu focused his energy, and sacred soul power gathered in his hands, forming a beautifully crafted holy sword, about 2 feet long. He presented it to Qianrenhan. In the Douluo continent, people generally matured slowly. Commoners often had children around the age of 12. Soul masters, fueled by soul power like hormones, developed faster. Although Qianrenhan hadn't yet awakened his martial spirit, he benefited from the best food and nutrition. The meat of soul beasts, rich in nutrients and soul power, formed the foundation of his strength. So, even at just 1 year old, he was about the size of a typical 2 or 3-year-old. Qiandaolu then directed a breath towards a large tree nearby, and a meter-long branch snapped off. As it flew towards him, leaves fell, one by one. By the time the branch landed in Qiandaolu's hand, it was bare, the last leaf falling right at his feet. The whole thing was pretty theatrical. With one hand behind his back, Qiandaolu said calmly, "Xiaohan, give it your best shot. Attack Grandpa. My attack speed will match yours, and I won't use any soul power." "Alright, Grandpa, here I come." That the instant Qianrenhan said alright, he lunged, thrusting the sword toward Qiandaolu's chest without hesitation. The power difference between them was like an elephant versus an ant. Could an ant's bite even pierce an elephant's skin? Similarly, even if Qiandaolu was weakened, his body could easily withstand the sword. "You little rascal." Qiandaolu chuckled at Qianrenhan's boldness and thrust out with his right hand, his speed mirroring Qianrenhan's. An adult's arm against a child's arm, a meter-long branch against a 2-foot sword, the outcome was obvious. Qianrenhan's arm wasn't long enough, and the branch struck him in the chest. He stumbled backward, wincing. Qiandaolu guessed the spot would probably bruise. Again. Qianrenhan charged once more, this time slashing from the right. "You're leaning too far forward, and your movements are too predictable. An opponent will see what you're going to do from a mile away," Qiandaolu explained casually. The branch shot out again, aiming for the space between Qianrenhan's waving arm and his head. The holy sword had to pass through that gap. Just as Qianrenhan thought the branch would be sliced in two, a smug grin on his face, the holy sword collided with it. The branch, seemingly fragile, acted like an unbreakable wall, stopping the sword dead. The force of the impact then slammed into the side of Qianrenhan's head. Qianrenhan yelped, "Ow!" Qiandaolu smiled. "How's that? Not so fun when the force of your swing is turned against you, huh?" Qianrenhan rubbed his head, scowling. "That's not fair, Grandpa. You said you wouldn't use soul power. How can a measly branch block the holy sword that can cut through stone?" Qiandaolu said calmly, "I kept my word. I didn't use soul power. But I used something else." Qianrenhan asked, what? Xiaohan, in the world of soul masters, swordsmanship is divided into 3 levels, beyond just basic technique. First, there's the fusion of man and sword. The sword becomes an extension of the self, and the self, an embodiment of the sword. Even a blade of grass can become a deadly weapon. This branch, though, isn't enough to block a sword forged from my soul power. The second level is sword energy. When someone's understanding of the sword deepens, they can wield it even without a physical weapon. The sword lives in their heart, and they can unleash deadly force from 100 paces away with their bare hands. As he spoke, Daolu's body trembled slightly, and the air to Qianrenhan's left seemed to vibrate. He turned instinctively and saw a large tree in the distance, surrounded by several people, toppling to the ground. The cut was clean and precise. Qianrenhan swallowed hard. Doulu continued, the third level is sword intent. Sword refers to the branch in my hand, and intent refers to my own awareness and focus. When the intent is strong enough, even ordinary branches can become magical weapons. Doulu waved the branch, still without using any soul power, and chopped another branch off the tree, leaving a shallow but clear mark on a nearby rock wall. The power was far weaker than the sword energy that had felled the tree earlier, but Doulu certainly wouldn't admit that his grasp of sword energy was too shallow to exert much force. He'd only reached this state after battling Qianjia, using full defense to withstand the 7-killing sword. Doulu extended his hand, and a golden book appeared, bearing the title Angel Sword Technique. You have to take it one step at a time. First, you must master every move in the angel sword art, until using the sword becomes second nature. It's not you wielding the sword, but you becoming one with it. Every type of swordsmanship can be used freely, without thinking. Doulu ruffled Qianrenhan's hair. Dedicate yourself to learning. Don't be like your father, who spends most of his time on official duties. Apart from official duties and training, his understanding of the sword isn't perfect at the first level. I understand, Grandpa. After Doulu handed over the angel sword technique to Qianrenhan, he returned to Douluo Hall. Qianrenhan remained alone on the mountaintop, the book in one hand and the branch in the other, practicing his swordsmanship. Chapter 6. Try to be a qualified older brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sweaty as could be, Qianrenhan showed up for lunch. Qianxunji and Qianrenxue were already at the table, Renxue perched on a stack of cushions. Xuanji might be swamped with work, but he made it a point to eat with his family, which is why Renxue thought the world of him. The table groaned under the weight of all kinds of fancy food, including delicacies from the mountains and the sea. The star attraction was meat from a 100-year-old soul beast, a rare and succulent treat. Big brother, Renxue spotted Renhan and dashed over, pulling him to the chair next to her. Why are you so sweaty, big brother? Xiaohan was practicing his swordsmanship, Xuanji said, ruffling Renxue's hair. He'd already heard about it from Qiandooliu and eyed Renhan with surprise. He'd always seen his son as aloof and unreadable. But now, Renxue had come to him for help with affairs, and he'd gone off to practice swordsmanship on his own. If it weren't for the blonde hair and the family resemblance, he'd wonder if the kid was an old soul in disguise. Renxue blinked her big eyes. Swordsmanship? Can I come with you, big brother? Renhan shook his head. Nah, you gotta be a certain age to learn swordsmanship. You're still too little. No, I'm not. I'm almost as big as you, okay? I want my brother to be like me. I'm not like you. At least I don't goof off all day, or bug you all the time, Renhan teased, tapping her forehead. Renxue hesitated. Fine, I won't bug you anymore. But can I still come watch you practice swords? Xuanji stepped in. Okay, Xiaoxue, swords aren't for you right now. How about when you're older, I'll teach you. Promise, Dad. Renxue trusted her father. I wonder when Mom's coming home. Renxue piped up suddenly, her heart full of hope. Grandpa and Dad both doted on her, and even her brother wasn't so cold anymore. All that was missing was her mother. Qianjia felt a pang of guilt. He'd told Renxue that Bibi Dong was far away on a journey. Heaven only knew what she'd become after going through that hellhole. But he clung to the hope that her love for her children would conquer all. Mom's training in a secret place to get stronger. I'll let you know when she's coming back. Renxue pressed. Is she training to protect me? Qianji's smile faltered, but he forced himself to say, yes. Renhan ate in silence, not commenting on Qianji's white lies. If he remembered correctly, Bibi Dong would spend 2 years in the killing city, one to master her murderous intent and another to face the consequences. Since Bibi Dong was his mother, he'd look the other way. If she hated him for not raising him, so be it, as long as she didn't harm him or Renxue. They could live separate lives and not interact, but if she messed with the spirit hall or the Qian family, all bets were off. Big brother, did you hear that? Mom's training to protect us. Renxue was back, pulling Renhan from his thoughts. Looking at her innocent smile, Renhan frowned. He might not care, but Renxue clearly did. In the original story, no matter how tough Renxue got, or how cruel Bibi Dong was, she still craved her mother's love. If he was going to be a big brother, he'd do what he could to make that smile last. After lunch, Qianjia was off to work. Renhan didn't let Renxue tag along this time. A morning of studying was enough. At her age, her understanding was limited. 10 minutes later, Renhan led Renxue to the small square in front of the Pope's palace, where the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy competition was once held. Lying at the top of the stairs was a wooden box. Xiaoxue, how about we play for a bit after lunch, then you take a nap, okay? Renxue was thrilled. What about you, big brother? Don't push it, or I'll treat you like I used to, Renhan said, with a slight frown. Okay, big brother. Renxue was a little dejected, but still excited. What are we playing? Renhan kicked the wooden box, grinning. You'll see when you sit on it. Renxue climbed in, and Renhan joined her. Perched in front of the wooden box, staring down the Pope's staircase, which was hundreds of meters high and thousands of steps long, a mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. Xiaoxue, hold on tight, Renxue caught on. Her eyes widened, and she cried, no way. I don't want to play this game. Here we go. Renhan shoved off. The wooden box started sliding down the Pope Mountain, bumping along like a crazy sled. The sound of wood hitting stairs filled the air, punctuated by Renxue's screams. Chapter 7 The Old Naughty Boy Guang Ling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiaoxue, hold still. Qianrenhan reached out, steadying her feet on either side of their makeshift sled to keep it balanced. He mirrored her position, leaning back to maintain their center of gravity. Pope Mountain, hundreds of feet tall, boasted a staircase stretching nearly 1,000 feet. Sledding down it was more thrilling than any roller coaster. Qianrenhan had been laughing hysterically since they started. Qianrenxue initially screamed, then nestled her head against his shoulder, squinting one eye open to experience the fun, before finally joining in the laughter. While the two were having the time of their lives, the palace guards in front of the Pope's palace and the 3 titled Douluo who heard Qianrenxue's shouts were scared out of their minds. Qianxunji jumped up from his seat, his composure shattered. Quick! Elder Yuxiao, stop Xiaoxue and Xiaohan. Now, these were the Qian family's precious heirs. If something happened sledding down such a height. Qianxunji couldn't bear the thought. As you command, Pope. Elder Yuxiao's feet glowed with 9 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, 5 black, and he immediately shot out of the Pope's palace. The wooden box had only traveled about 100 yards down the steps when a middle-aged figure in a bright red robe suddenly appeared in front of them. With a gentle touch, he brought the sled to a halt. Elder Yuxiao, please let us continue, Qianrenhan said, his tone laced with annoyance. The titled Douluo before him was Qianxunji's right-hand man, who would later become one of Tang Hao's stepping stones to becoming a titled Douluo himself. Elder Yuxiao gave a wry smile. You two young masters, this is too dangerous. You shouldn't be playing such a risky game. Dangerous? Qianrenhan raised an eyebrow. The oval wooden box was crafted from sturdy white wood, strong enough to hold the weight of 2 children. The Pope's stairs were also meticulously maintained, smooth and even. As long as they kept their balance, there was no way they could tip over. Let us go, Qianrenhan stated flatly. Young master, please come down. Jade Flute Douluo maintained his pained smile. There's no danger. I order you to let us go. Qianrenhan's tone sharpened. This was the 3rd time he'd asked. Your Majesty the Pope, Elder Yuxiao said, defeated, and turned back to the Pope's palace, intending to seek instructions from Qianxunji. In terms of rank, the 2 youngsters were on par with the worshippers, while he was merely an elder. Xiaohan is right. How can such fun be dangerous? Xiao Yuxiao, let them continue. A voice, both youthful and aged, echoed out. Qianrenhan and Qianrenxue turned to see another figure joining them on the wooden box. A child with snow-white hair and a small frame, dressed in white robes. Grandpa Guang Ling. Grandpa Guang Ling. Qianrenhan greeted him, his eyes showing affection. The 6 major worshippers in the hall of worship were completely trustworthy. They all believed in the angel god, willing to self-destruct to protect it. The elder's loyalty in the elder hall couldn't compare. 5th uncle, what brings you here? Qianxunji's stern face softened into a forced smile. Light Ling Douluo waved his hand dismissively. Your Majesty, don't worry. I'll take good care of Xiao Henin and Xiao Xuexue. No need to fret. Guang Ling Douluo had spoken, leaving Qianxunji no choice but to signal Yuxiao Douluo to return, a bitter smile on his face. As soon as Yuxiao Douluo released the sled, Qianrenhan said, Grandpa Guangling, just balance yourself like Xiaoxue. Don't worry, balance is my specialty. Guang Ling Douluo's long silver hair billowed in the wind as he let out a hearty laugh. In the distance, the worshippers covered their faces and shook their heads. After speeding down Pope Mountain, the wooden box didn't stop. It continued its momentum, gliding for over 1,000 feet, more than halfway through Wuhun City, before finally coming to a halt. Everyone who saw them turned to stare in disbelief. Qianrenxue clapped her hands. Oh, brother, Grandpa Guangling, that was so awesome. Let's do it again. Okay. Light Ling Douluo grabbed the 2 children and the wooden box, soaring into the air towards the summit of Pope Mountain. Everyone gaped. No one expected a child to be a titled Douluo. Back in front of the Pope's palace, Qianrenhan said, Xiaoxue, you play with Grandpa Guangling. I'm going to practice my swordsmanship. Qianrenxue whined, brother, can't you come again? It's really exhilarating. Yes, Xiaohan, Light Ling Douluo chimed in. You didn't get to play much when you were little. Once you awakened your martial spirit, it was too late. No need, Grandpa Guangling. Once a day is enough, Qianrenhan replied with a smile. He wasn't a child or an old codger, he wasn't interested in frivolous play. Be good. Don't get carried away. Go to bed soon, Qianrenhan said, patting Qianrenxue's head. Qianrenxue nodded. Okay, brother. That kid, Guang Ling Douluo said, watching Qianrenhan walk away, shaking his head. He couldn't fathom what Qianrenhan was thinking. Chapter 8 The Collision of Swords and Arrows. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time sure flies. A year and a half has zipped by. Up on the training platform, Qianrenhan, decked out in platinum gear and sporting long golden hair, was working with a special sword, a broadsword. Really, no point to it. Eyes closed, he sliced through the air, all kinds of sword techniques flowing from him, no hesitation, no wasted motion. Qiandaolu, watching nearby, nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. He tapped his foot and flicked a pebble toward Qianrenhan. Renhan, mid-swing, seemed to sense it. His eyes snapped open, and he saw the rock coming right at him. Quick as lightning, he punched it out of the air. Nice, Xiaohan. You felt that coming. You've barely scratched the surface of being one with the blade. I've shown you the ropes, kid. The rest is up to you. Qiandaolu said, pleased. He knew that blindly copying his style would only make Renhan a second-rate version of himself. Only by forging his own path would Renhan truly reach his potential and maybe even claim the divine ancestor's throne. Got it, Grandpa. Renhan nodded, glancing at the dust on his fist, a touch of frustration in his eyes. He still needed to be quicker with the sword. If that had been a real fight, blocking with his fist instead of his blade could have meant a broken hand. Just then, Guang Ling Douluo, a snowy-haired old prankster, sauntered up to Qiandaolu, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Guang Ling, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be practicing? Up to no good again, I bet. Qiandaolu said sternly. He didn't mind Guang Ling playing around with his granddaughter. She hadn't even awakened her spirit yet, but Renhan was a promising soul master. He couldn't let Guang Ling distract him from his training. Guang Ling chuckled. Easy, old-timer. I just came to bring some good news to you both. What's that? Qiandaolu asked. Little Donger has finally tamed that killing city energy. She'll be back soon. Qianrenhan frowned. Already? Bibi Dong had left for the killing city half a year ago, aiming to calm the murderous intent within. He figured it would take at least a year, but she was coming back 6 months early. Well, we'll see her when she gets here. Qiandaolu said, and then turned to Renhan. Xiaohan, keep practicing your sword and strive to truly unify yourself with it. And stay away from Guang Ling. Qiandaolu shot Guang Ling a warning look before heading off. Grandpa Guang Ling, come train with me. Qianrenhan called out to Guang Ling, who was about to leave. Huh? Xiaohan, how am I supposed to train with you? We use totally different weapons. Guang Ling chuckled. He used a bow. Renhan used a sword. He could guide Renhan on using his soul power, but Renhan hadn't even awakened his spirit yet. Qianrenhan flicked his sword. Grandpa Guangling, you're the best archer in the whole land. You can nail anything with an ice arrow. Why not try aiming at me? I'll use my sword to deflect your shots. Call it a real combat simulation. Alright, sounds like fun. Guang Ling agreed easily. Life was too short to waste. He knew he had already reached his limit. There was no point in burying himself in practice. 10 yards away, 9 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black, shimmered around Guang Ling's feet. Dominating all was the massive spirit ring, larger than his entire body, completely icy blue, with blue-purple ice at the tips that formed wing-like decorations. The bow and arrow that were extremely gorgeous fell into his hand. Heads up, Xiaohan. Guang Ling gently pulled back the bowstring. The chill radiating from his body condensed into a tiny ice arrow, no bigger than your pinky finger. With his soul power control, this little thing couldn't even pierce tree bark. The bowstring twanged, and the ice arrow shot out at about 20 miles an hour. Barely faster than a kid's slingshot. It was a demonstration of the old archer's skill and was more like a fun game. Sword met ice, and there was a crisp cracking sound. Qianrenhan grinned. Guess my last year and a half hasn't been a total waste. Oh yeah? Let's see you handle a double dose. Guang Ling channeled his soul power again, and 3 identical ice arrows materialized. They paused for less than a second before launching, just a hair faster than before, but Renhan deflected them all, one by one. Xiaohan, your mother's coming back in a few days. Why don't you seem happier? Weren't you just asking about her earlier? Guang Ling asked, not missing a beat with his shots, trying to throw Renhan off and make things harder. Happy? Why should I be happy? She'll be back when she gets back. If you hadn't mentioned her, I would have forgotten about her. Qianrenhan responded, carefully avoiding any unnecessary movements with his sword arm. Guang Ling wasn't surprised. He mumbled, that kid's as cold as ice. He's nothing like Xiaoxue. A minute later, One of the ice arrows slipped through Renhan's defenses and grazed his right shoulder, making contact with his clothes. "Alright, Xiao Han, that's enough for today." Guang Ling flicked his hand, and the ice arrow zoomed back, spinning on his fingertips. "Not quite yet, Grandpa Guangling." There was the sound of two heavy objects hitting the ground. Qianrenhan snapped his wrist and raised his sword once again. Guang Ling paused, then chuckled. "Alright, kid, bring it on." Chapter 9. When I first met Bibi Dong, I immediately drew my sword upon meeting him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 7 days later, Qianxunji and Qianrenxue were already waiting at the gates of the Pope's palace. Qianxunji had arranged for the night guarding the palace that day to give him a half-day's leave. The whole continent knew Bibi Dong was Qianxunji's disciple. Imagine the scandal if Qianxunji's kid started calling Bibi Dong mom in public. Master-disciple romance? That's even more scandalous than brother-sister relationships. Absolutely repulsive. The Douluo continent places a huge emphasis on respect. A teacher for a day, a father for life. Remember when Yu Xiaoan and Lu Erlong, who were cousins, unknowingly got married? The whole continent gossiped, and the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect was in an uproar. If news got out that Qianxunji and Bibi Dong had a kid, their reputations, along with that of the Spirit Hall, would be ruined. Dad, why isn't Mom here yet?" Qianrenxue asked, jumping and tugging at Qianxunji's hand. Clearly impatient, Qianxunji, ever doting, replied, "Don't worry, sweetie. I heard from someone that Mommy will be here soon." Clang, clang, Qianrenhan said as he walked over to Qianxunji, carrying a chair in each hand. "Here, father, Xiaoxue, sit down and wait." Bibi Dong and Qianrenhan never had plans to wait for each other. He had intended to keep his distance from the start, but Qianxunji insisted on dragging him along from Jianfeng. He didn't really have a choice. "Brother, how could you? Sitting and waiting is disrespectful to mother," Qianrenxue protested. She was still caught up in the fairy tales Qianxunji had spun for her, believing Bibi Dong had left to get stronger so she could protect them. Even though Bibi Dong had been absent since her birth and never even breastfed her, Qianrenxue still thought highly of her. Qianrenhan snapped back, "Then stand, I guess." "Xiao Han," Qianxunji sighed, sounding defeated. He really didn't know how to handle this kid. Just then, a luxurious one-person carriage approached outside the gates of Spirit Hall City. Inside sat a breathtakingly beautiful woman. She looked to be about 25 or 26, with skin as white as snow and a tall, proud figure. She looked like a dream made flesh, but the murderous glint and bloodshot eyes hinted at a rage simmering beneath the surface. This was Bibi Dong, the woman they were all waiting for. Sensing the approaching angelic aura, which made her physically ill, Bibi Dong's beautiful face contorted in fury. The first Rakshasa test: devour the angel soul of the Seraph Martial Soul Master. Qianxunji, I'm going to make you pay. You destroyed me, tore me and Xiaoan apart. I'll make you pay 100-fold. I'll kill you, and I'll destroy the Angel Clan and the Spirit Hall. After 2 years of trials in the City of Slaughter and another 6 months traveling the continent, Bibi Dong had been discreetly asking around for Yu Xiaoan while trying to calm herself after the experience in the City of Slaughter. She learned that Yu Xiaoan was now part of the famous Golden Iron Triangle. She was overjoyed that he had become famous, but after secretly observing him, she realized that Yu Xiaoan seemed to have moved on and fallen for a woman named Lu Erlong. This only made her hatred for Qianxunji multiply. As the carriage arrived at the foot of Spirit Hall Mountain, Bibi Dong immediately composed herself, her face smoothing out, and buried all her thoughts of revenge deep within her heart. She then stepped onto the Pope's steps. At the entrance of the Pope's palace, Qianxunji used his powerful mental strength as a tidal Douluo to spot Bibi Dong. "Xiaoxue, Xiao Han, mother is here. She'll be up soon." Qianrenxue rubbed her tired little legs, instantly energized. Her eyes widened, not wanting to miss a single moment before Bibi Dong appeared. Qianrenhan leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and mumbled, finally. A moment later, footsteps sounded, and Bibi Dong appeared. Qianrenxue was instantly thrilled. The perfect aura, the nearly flawless appearance, and the tall, stunning figure, this was definitely her mother. Mother, Qianrenxue raced up the stairs, taking them two at a time. Xiao Han, hurry up. Qianxunji grabbed Qianrenhan's arm and launched him forward, hoping Bibi Dong would forgive him for the sake of their children. The force of the throw was calculated to match the speed of Qianrenxue's short legs, so they would both be there to protect Bibi Dong. After all, two kids doubled the chances of success. Unfortunately, Qianxunji's plan was doomed to fail. Bibi Dong, who had been carefully watching Qianxunji, was drawn in by Qianrenxue's cry of mother. Seeing Qianrenxue running toward her with her striking blonde hair, Bibi Dong felt disgusted. The painful memories resurfaced, and murderous intent erupted. She swung her hand in a slap, thinking, "You little bastard, get away from me." Xiao Shui, Qianxunji was stunned. He never imagined Bibi Dong would strike the child. It was too late for him to react. Qianrenxue was too close to Bibi Dong, and because he assumed a mother wouldn't hurt her own child, he hadn't prepared in advance. Seeing Bibi Dong attack, Qianrenxue froze in fear and stammered, "Mom." At the crucial moment, Qianrenhan stepped in front of Qianrenxue, drawing a long sword. With 7 days of training under Guang Ling Douluo, he drew his sword the moment Bibi Dong's expression shifted. The sword was originally for him, since he resembled Qianxunji much more than Qianrenxue did, but Bibi Dong had noticed Qianrenxue first and attacked her. The moment the sword clashed with Bibi Dong's soul power, Qianrenhan was sent flying backward, the sword flying out of his hand. His hand tore, and he knelt on the ground, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "You!" Qianrenhan clutched his chest and glared at Bibi Dong. He was injured so badly from blocking the blow. If Qianrenxue had taken that hit, she might have been dying. Who knows how long she would have been bedridden. In the original novel, DouluoDalu mentioned Qianrenxue nearly being killed by Bibi Dong, so it happened here. At the same time, Qianrenhan felt lucky. Fortunately, Bibi Dong attacked Qianrenxue. If Bibi Dong had noticed him first, the one who looked 7/10 similar to Qianxunji, would she have been able to restrain herself? She might have killed him on the spot. Chapter 10: The Awakening of the Martial Spirit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bro. Xiao Han, Qianxunji pressed his hand against Qianrenhan's back, channeling angelic soul power to heal him. The hexagonal seraph was strong, fast, defensive, and could heal, control, and assist, rivaling even the best martial spirit. Qianrenxue's eyes were bloodshot as she roared, "Dad, kill her. Kill that bitch. She hurt my brother. She's not my mother." Bibi Dong stared, stunned, at the badly injured Qianrenhan. Then, a spiteful smirk crept onto her face. "Teacher," she said, "your unfilial student, Bibi Dong, has returned." Qianrenxue froze. Bibi Dong. That was her mother's name. The person who'd hurt her brother really was her mother. "Donger, why?" Qianxunji asked, his voice a mix of shock, anger, and helplessness. He wanted to scream at Bibi Dong, to tell her to come at him if she had a problem, but as the Pope, he didn't want to shatter the image he'd built for his children. The image of his greatness, Qianrenhan, you never established any image in my heart, Bibi Dong just sneered. "Teacher, my apologies. It's just the lingering influence of my killing god domain. It won't happen again. You bitch." A low, furious voice cut through the air. Bibi Dong looked at Qianrenhan, the boy she'd just struck. His eyes were bloodshot and cold, as if nothing mattered to him. It made her tremble. This spawn was different from Qianxunji and Qianrenxue. Qianxunji's eyes were filled with anger, guilt, and disappointment. Qianrenxue's were full of heartache, confusion, and sadness. But Qianrenhan was cold and indifferent, devoid of any emotion a child his age should have after being hurt by his own mother. I'll remember this. Qianrenhan stood up and headed toward the edge of the sword cliff, brushing off Qianxunji's attempts to heal him. His body had been pampered with medicinal baths and fine food since birth, he wasn't so fragile. Qianrenxue watched Bibi Dong confront Qianxunji, then turned to Qianrenhan, who was determined to leave. She gritted her teeth and ran after him. Brother! What's wrong, Xiaoxue? Qianrenhan turned and forced a smile. Qianrenxue asked softly, Brother, does it hurt? Qianrenhan said lightly, I'm fine. It's nothing. After hesitating, Qianrenxue finally said, Brother, Mom didn't mean it. Can you forgive her? Qianrenhan didn't get angry, but his eyes turned cold as he looked at Qianrenxue. What should I do? Xiaoxue, if you want to forgive her, go ahead. I'm going to train. You should do your own thing. Qianrenhan pushed Qianrenxue's hand away and left. As a big brother, he'd do what a big brother should do, like taking time to play with Qianrenxue every day so she'd have good memories. But he wouldn't get involved in her relationship with Bibi Dong. If Qianrenxue wanted to be abused, that was her business. As long as Bibi Dong didn't attack Qianrenxue again, he wouldn't interfere. Arriving at Sword Peak, DouluoDalu, who rarely came here after introducing Qianrenhan to the world of swords, was waiting. DouluoDalu saw Qianrenhan's injury instantly. With a wave of his hand, his powerful level 99 cultivation healed it in a flash. Qianrenhan asked, Grandpa, what are you doing here? You saw her, DouluoDalu said, his eyes clouded with complicated emotions. Grandpa, don't you know everything? Qianrenhan's face remained expressionless. He wasn't about to run to his grandparents' arms crying just because his mom hit him. Indeed. DouluoDalu sighed, squatted down, and put a hand on Qianrenhan's shoulder. Xiao Han, what happened with Bibi Dong is complicated. I hope you won't hold a grudge against her. You've been different since you were a child. When you're old enough, I'll tell you everything. And I hope you'll make your own decisions then. Qianrenhan nodded slightly. I understand, Grandpa. After DouluoDalu left, Qianrenhan said quietly, in a voice only he could hear, Grandpa, what I'm doing now is the decision I made when I learned what Qianxunji and Bibi Dong did. Bibi Dong went through hell. Even if she's a complete bitch, it's impossible not to hate her. So, as long as she doesn't harm Spirit Hall again, I won't feel any hate for her, or insult her. But if she causes trouble again, when I'm strong enough to do something about it, I won't listen to anyone's pleas and I won't care about infamy. Time passed. 3.5 years later, Qianrenhan and Qianrenxue were 6 years old. In Spirit Hall, DouluoDalu, the 6 Grand Elders, and Qianxunji were gathered. DouluoDalu stood beneath the angel statue, surrounded by the 6 elders. Inside the circle, Qianrenhan and Qianrenxue were about to awaken their martial spirits and were standing in the magic circle. As for Qianxunji, a titled Douluo whose cultivation was only level 94 and not even a super Douluo, he was only allowed here because he was a member of the Qian family, otherwise, he'd be out. Xiao Han, Xiaoxue, relax, DouluoDalu said kindly. He preferred Qianrenhan because his grandson had shown extraordinary dedication and talent since he was a child. In 5 years of training, he had already mastered swordsmanship to the point of perfect human sword integration. It was simply unbelievable. Even the 7 Slaughter Sword clan, who had been swordsmen for generations, was considered a super freak, let alone the Qian family, whose swordsmanship was not as good as theirs. Brother, do you think Mom will like me if I awaken my martial spirit? Qianrenxue's warm, cute voice sounded tired. For the past 3.5 years, she had been trying to connect with Bibi Dong. But every time she visited, no matter what gifts she brought, they were thrown away. She could spend 1 year in exchange for a good brother, but it took 3.5 years and even greater efforts to get a mother. Her patience was almost exhausted. Qianrenhan took a deep breath. He wanted to say that you were happy, but after thinking about it, he changed his mind and said, I don't know.